Perfect. So we're deploying out this nice little X-Wing. I'm going to go ahead and start flying out into the field. First things first, I'm going to talk about the VR implementation just because I'm playing in VR. I don't like that I have to take a new game like this and lock it to 45 frames a second to get that nice smooth rate, especially when I'm turning, because it gets pretty blurry pretty quick. And I'm running a pretty high-end PC, so it's not the PC. But like I said, I've got it locked to 45 frames, and I get a pretty smooth frame rate when I do that. Anyway, not really going to concern you guys that are playing on Xbox or PS4. So let's talk about the gameplay style, for instance. For starters, if you don't have a PSVR headset or a PC VR headset, you're not going to be doing this looking around like I'm doing in the cockpit right now. What you're going to see is right here, right in front of me. Which this here is all you need in order to be able to do effective combat. Really, the only advantage being able to look around is when you're in an X-Wing or in these rebellion fighters. The ability to look around isn't as prominent in the TIE fighter, and I'll show you why here after I describe how this game kind of works. If you're familiar with Elite Dangerous or Tacky on the Fringe, you're gonna pick this up real quick because it has a lot of the same combat elements as those two games do, with the exception of this ability to stop dead in space. I kind of hope EA gets rid of this as we progress in as this game progresses, because this feature right here annoys me, and it's a feature that in multiplayer battles I have already seen people just utilize it. This gets rid of the dogfighting mentality that you would normally get with any kind of a flight battle or space sim type game. It changes things a little bit. I'm trying to learn to utilize that to my advantage, but I'm not used to being able to just stop a ship virtually on a dime. With that being talked about, the ability to stop, let's talk about the first thing that's kind of important, and that's throttle management. So, for the X-Wing, on the left-hand side of your console, you see this little bar that moves up and down. That is your throttle indicator, and the numbers there tell you where your throttle is at. The big thing to remember is that all of the throttles in this game have a maximum turn rate area. On the X-Wing, it's about right there. And this is where I'm going to get the fastest turn rate out of the X-Wing. And you can see that as I progress either back off the throttle or through the throttle, that turn rate decreases. You can see the line on it right there, the curve. That's important to know because a lot of this game is turn fighting. You're not going to do a lot of boom and zoom tactics. For those of you who play War Thunder or DCS, they're used to flight sims. The boom and zoom thing, so far I have had zero effectiveness with it. And that could just be because I don't know a whole lot about this particular game yet. Sorry. I promise I do not have the COVID. Anyway, so throttle management is going to be a key portion to being successful in this game. The next thing, and this is going to be very familiar specifically to Elite Dangerous players, is system management. Although I say that, and actually the throttle management system in Elite Dangerous is the same way too. And system management is you have choices between power to your weapons, power to shields, and power to your engines. And that is going to be used for actually a few different indicators that you're going to be using information all at the same time. But for starters, this little set of 3 lights down here. The blue is my engines, red is weapons, green is shields. If I decide to transfer all power to engines, you can see above the throttle quadrant here, or above the throttle indicator, a blue light turns on, and you can see a pipper that's filling up. That is like my boost charge. So now when I throttle all the way up, for starters, you automatically get a speed bump when you run your power all the way to max, but now when I hit the boost button, I've got a ton of speed coming out of it. That's the get out of dodge right now button. You can see how effective this might be if you run into a situation in combat. And I can throttle down, hit my drift button, and I can drift out and away from the combat situation. Haven't really mastered the use of drift yet. Something I still have to learn how to do. Anyway, that is your throttle. Now let's talk about the weapons. Weapons are similar. We're going to reset my powers first. First, let's notice gunfire without any extra power with my weapons. You can see the indicator up here in the left-hand corner going down, and now it's building back up. If I decide to put some power to my weapons, you're going to notice it. You hear that little ting sound that comes up. That's this overcharge coming out of my weapons. There's the difference right there. So that's more power to my lasers than my weapon system. And you can hear it as you're going through. You can hear and see the difference as your system draws down. Very similar to how it works in Elite Dangerous. And as you can also see, it builds up much quicker as well. Reset the system here. And if you, depending upon how you're getting into your battle situation, and you can see what you're going to need more of at different times, is going to depend on how you're going to utilize your power. So if you know you're about to get into a huge fight that you're not going to need a whole lot of maneuverability for, you can shift your power and get yourself prepped, and then come back out of it and let it, because once you build up everything, like if I leave my weapons power up, it's going to build up all the way up and leave the system in kind of an overcharged state until I take it out of it. And now the overcharged state is slowly going to wind down. And if I use it, it'll die down faster, but I'm going to get some use out of the overcharged system right away. And that's going to be true with the weapons, with the throttle, and with the shield, which is the other one to talk about. So you can see my shields up in the upper right hand corner are starting to build up. And they're fully white. And right now my shields are set in a balanced mode. There's no focus. Depending upon what's going on in game and where the attack is coming from, you can shift to bring power focused shields to the front or to the back of the aircraft. What I have discovered is only Rebellion fighters have shields. So far, Imperial fighters don't have them. I think that's a big mistake. I think EA needs to fix that. Apparently, the Imperial side can do a power conversion thing that I haven't quite figured out how to do, which aids them in combat. I don't particularly like the fact that I can't use shields in Imperial fighter. I think that is a mistake, and I think it needs to get fixed. With your shield strength powered up, now my shields can take a pretty heavy beating, and I can keep coming back in to the fight. We're going to go ahead and balance the power back out and run that back in. You're going to notice that the shield strength will start to decrease slowly over time now as it sits back in a balanced state. Alright, the final couple things to look at here are going to be the radar and the MFCD. Let's talk about the radar first. Again, if you've played Tachyon or Elite Dangerous, this is not going to be a foreign concept to you. If the item or enemy that you're trying to get is in the center of the radar, your nose theoretically should be pointed right at him. And all you have to do is turn in the direction of whatever it is you're trying to find. And I'll demonstrate that in a battle here in a second. The MFCD, and nothing's going to come out now because I don't have anything to lock onto, but the MFCD will give you information on your enemy's shields, hull, and it also will show its orientation in relation to you. All of that can be good information when talking about making strikes on an opponent. So, without further ado, let's demonstrate some of this. Go ahead and deploy an enemy squadron. Alright, so I've got a squadron off to my 11 o'clock-ish. Yeah, about 10 o'clock-ish. We're going to go ahead and put some power to weapons. Shields. And I'm gonna lock up this guy right here. You can see that I'm taking his shield strength down. Well, hang on, why does these guys seem to have shields? Oh, that's right, there is a... He's going down.
Enemy on my tail.
Now I'm taking a big beating from behind, so I'm going to go ahead and shift my power there. And run my throttle all the way up, run my turn speed, because I got to get on whoever was lighting me up. It looks like it's this guy right here. And we need some more power in my shields, less power in my weapons, because my shield was taking it. So now I'm getting it from both sides, so I'm going to balance my shields out. And I'm going to continue this fight. Highly outnumbered here, but that's okay.
Quit using countermeasures. Not bad.
Yeah, he's going down, and I'm still taking quite a beating, so I'm going to keep a little more power in my shields. Keep this up for now as I pick off targets. By the way, this is much harder when you're actually playing against other players. It should be noted, now I've got my X-Wing has some extra stuff on it right now, but normally your lasers aren't guided lasers, right? You have to unlock these. So you have to get good at learning how to lead a target and take targets out that way. Without the assist of a guided lasers. Guided lasers are nice because you can land a lot of hits, where they're not as nice as they don't do quite as much damage. So I'm not thoroughly convinced this is really good. And what I'm doing right now is not how I would do combat in an online multiplayer game. I would be in these weeds. In fact, I'll show this to you. Go ahead and focus my power behind me for now. And we're going to get into this, because this is where your combat's going to take place, is in the rubble. Other players use the rubble as cover, and it's what you're going to use for cover as well. So you have to get used to maneuvering a ship in a congested space. And that's where using the throttle, your rudders, and your roll rates is going to make a difference.
Enemy on my tail.
Ooh, clipped it. This is what the combat looks a lot more like in a multiplayer match.
I got a tail.
Come on, and missile out.
Oh yeah.
He's going down. Lock this guy up. You can see that in this X-Wing I'm able to maintain target acquisition a lot better than, and I'm going to show this to you. I'm going to go to a TIE fighter and show you how what the difference is. Alright, here is why I say not playing in VR is not going to be too big of an issue as far as advantage goes. As you can see, what I got in front of me, that is my window. I cannot do what I was doing in the X-Wing and maintain target acquisition like I can in an open cockpit in War Thunder or in DCS. I got one window to look out of, and I absolutely hate this about the Imperial fighters. But this is how the Imperial fighters look, so this is, you would expect that this is how it would go. So, and if you look, there's my throttle indicator right here, and I have weapons and engines to balance between. So there's no shields right now. I'm not a big fan of not having shields either, but that's how they have this set up for now. So we're going to go ahead and do this X-Wing thing, and I rely very heavily on the radar and an Imperial interceptor.
Throwing fire!
The nice thing is the lasers are pretty strong, and as long as you can maintain good hits, good solid hits on them, you will tear right through enemies pretty quick. I've done most of my multiplayer battles in Imperial fighters. But the other side of it, as you can see, flying into these fields makes things rough. So this is me getting, so I can't get locked on so easily. But I'm about to lose this ship in a second. Yeah, I just lost it. There's no way for me to transfer anything back and forth. It's just, that's what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and use another one. This one I've built for more maneuverability. It's meant for turn fighting. And it does have a forward shield it will deploy when I'm ready for it. But that's it. That's the only shield it has. So we'll lock somebody up. Hopefully send a missile out. At 2,600 meters, really hard to hit anything. You'll notice these lasers don't track like they did in my X-Wing because I don't have auto-focusing lasers. Getting knocked up.
They locked on!
He didn't fire, so I didn't fire mine off. So he's hurting.
Fighter on my tail!
Go ahead and put my forward shields up, make them. One's going down. See, I do a lot of focusing on my radar. Down. I'll lock this guy up. Even with just a couple of hits, you can see he's smoking, so that's where the Imperial fighters kind of do pretty good, but it's really hard to land good solid hits on a actual player. So just gonna go ahead and go through this real quick. I'm not gonna go through the entire battle, but this is kind of how it looks, and this is what I really do like about this game. You're gonna notice that the squadron's name is a real good name for how they have this set up. You can see I've got X-Wing squadrons there, and X-Wing squadrons to my left as well. And then you're going to notice in front of me, I've got TIE Fighter squadrons coming. There are only 5 players that play in these squadron type battles. So you're only ever going to be up against 5 human pilots. But there's tons of AI targets to attack. And the reason they did they slowed down the amount of actual players that can be in this is because they don't want this just to be a slugfest. There is a level of strategic element to the game because there's different fighter classes. If you've ever played any kind of a MOBA like League of Legends, you can think of that type of gameplay style, where there's going to be lanes that you're going to be taking on, and depending upon what kind of ship you're flying, is going to greatly affect what your role is going to be as a pilot in the game for each multiplayer match. So we got this little interceptor right here. I'm going to lock up, or try to lock up. Away. He's gone. And I'm going to start taking out these little AI squadrons. So again, remember I talked about power management. I am clearly in an offensive position, so I've pushed all my power to my weapons so that I can just start lighting these guys up. As you can see that with the power to my weapons, I'm just shredding ships. That's why I talk about power management. Pretty quick here, I'm going to lose the offensive advantage, and I'm going to have to switch to a defensive posture where my shields and my engines are going to be more important. But for now, I can just keep shredding TIE fighters. Ooh, that hurt. Taking out that little raider gave me plenty of morale to basically put the team on the offensive now. So now I can go take on their capital ship cruisers, which are these things right here. When doing this is why I don't like the Imperial side, because when you're doing this, you don't have any shields to transfer in front of you, and you need the shields to make an attack on a destroyer. Because you can see I'm about to lose this thing right now. So we're about to rip this guy in a second. Transfer the shields behind me. Use my repair droid if I can. And then as I'm making my next move, we'll transfer the shields in front of me again. You know, it's saying to fall back, it's just because it's training, but if this was a real match, we would be smoking these guys right now. And now this is actually perfect. So you can see how this works. You can see the 3 lanes would be the upper, middle, and lower lane. And that's kind of how MOBAs work, like League of Legends. So that's kind of how the gameplay works as far as the fleet battles go. So I'm going to go ahead and change the Starfighter here. We're going to go to this thing. I really do like this thing. It can't take much of a hit, but it's really fast. And look at how much I can see out of this thing. This, if you're playing in VR, is an automatic way. This is like the best ship to have. Look at how fast these lasers fire. I can wreck ships. So let's see. Power to my aft shields. We're gonna go ahead and bring some power to shields and weapons. Because I don't really need maneuverability right now. I just need my weapons and my shields to be on point.
On your way.
This is really not the best ship for doing what I'm doing right now. It's meant more for doing this. Going after little fighters. Keep my stuff aft because I got a little fighter in front of me.
Oh, blasted.
This thing will just shred through stuff. Anybody hear me? Alright, here we go.
Titan 3 forming up.
Hello.
Titan 5 standing by.
Titan 2 at
What's
the
that
ready.
gonna do in the
Titan 4 in
text to speech?
formation.
Is
Titan
text to
1
speech
in
working?
formation.
Titan,
Alright.
you must protect our listening post. Destroy their MC-75 and push the enemy out of SOS. This is it.
I have no idea what my
I'm
team
ready.
is doing, but I'm going to try to start by just eliminating fighters. This guy in.
Now you won't die.
There we go.
Absolutely not.
Ah, there we go. Power to weapons.